Hi everybody. I like the podium, it's very safe. You might remember me from such presentations as yesterday's Sea Shepherd presentation, and now I'm here wearing the suit and wearing the colors. I wanted to thank Jordan for his presentation. It was very good, and we need those kind of voices in all the places where power is. And thank you also for creating the awkward moment with the Elizabeth May thing. And I will address that at question time, in question period. And so that's important, of course. So my take on politics is a little bit different. What I want to do is talk about a little bit of my background and what I'm bringing to my candidacy, and then sort of the results of the recent provincial election in Manitoba, where I was able to come in a very strong second place. I came within 5% of winning the seat, which would have made me the first Green MLA in Manitoba history, and also talk about what that sort of means for the future. I am going to be running again, by the way. So a little bit about my background to sort of give you a basis of not only to let you get to know me, but all of this stuff that I'm going to talk about was actually in my leaflet. I made a full color leaflet that we handed out to 10,000 people, and I let them know who I was from this leaflet. So I have 26 years of environmental and animal activism under my belt. I've been vegan for 24 years. I've done forest conservation work. I've also been arrested for civil disobedience 4 times, including Clayoquot Sound. Anita, are you here? She also got arrested in Clayoquot Sound in 1993 on those blockades. I worked for 18 years with other individuals and conservation groups to end logging in Manitoba's provincial parks. Yes, we had logging, clear-cut industrial logging in the parks. We still have mining in our parks. I know it's just terrible. But that was one of the victories we worked on, and it took some time to achieve. We also saw that particular mill that was responsible for logging in the parks we were working in shut down in 2010. So that was another victory as well. I traveled to Churchill in 1992, the year I became vegan, with a bunch of animal rights activists, because in Churchill, Manitoba, we have beluga whales as well as polar bears. And that was the last year they captured beluga whales from Churchill. Since then, they haven't captured any. And it was partially because of our actions, but also I think what happened in the town, they became more of a whale watching town than a whale capture town, so things moved in a better direction. I first started crewing with the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society in 1998. I've done 8 campaigns, 4 Antarctic anti-whaling campaigns. I've been on a seal hunt twice with a ship. So all of this was in my leaflet, and the point about that is it's not as hard-hitting as the previous presentation. I'm not bringing that same sort of feeling to politics as Jordan is. What my thoughts are on it is that the good news is that people actually didn't push back. Like I said, I handed out 10,000 of these leaflets. I got one person in Wolseley, it's the sort of granola neighborhood of Winnipeg, that didn't like the sort of perceived violence of the organization. One of my campaign workers, I actually started the campaign a year and a half before the election date, and one of my campaign workers, who's a little bit older and not really involved in some of the activist stuff, she said, you have that Sea Shepherd experience, maybe we should minimize that. And I said, no, we're not going to. I think we should be honest, because even if I do try to minimize it, it's going to come out anyway. So let's just put it out there. One person had a problem with the Macaw anti-whaling campaign of 1998. I don't know if any of you know about this, but the Macaw tribe of Washington Strait wanted to go back to whaling after a 70-year absence. Sea Shepherd was one of the organizations opposed to it. We actually allied ourselves with the elders of the community who didn't want to go back to whaling, and of course in the media it was covered as white environmentalists versus Aboriginal people, and it was a fairly ugly situation media-wise. But that campaign was actually eventually won. But there was only one person who brought that up on social media. Now, we got to look at this in context. In 2011, in the 2011 provincial election, in this riding, the Greens got 20% of the vote and the NDP got 60%. So there was a 40% difference. So coming into this election, I wasn't necessarily a threat. We got our signs up pretty quick. We got some of our advertising going. We got a really good office space. We raised quite a bit of money. But I think their strategy in the past, we had run 4 times in Wolseley before that, since starting in 1999, and they beat us by a pretty big margin, at least 40% each time. So I think their strategy was to sort of ignore the campaign and just ignore what's happening. But as the momentum built, I think they started taking us more seriously. And then when the results came in, I was able to get about 2,700 votes, and the incumbent got about just over 3,000. So it was within about 400 votes of winning. Again, it doesn't matter if you don't win, you're done, because it's the first past the post system, which is really frustrating. We also in the Green Party want to change that as well. But I'm going to run in 2020, and I think this time, because we were so close, they're going to start digging up stuff from my past and try to put it up there as a negative. So I expect more attacks, even on the stuff that people kind of didn't care about at first. I've actually run 3 times before this. The first time was in 2000 for the federal election, and also 2004. The reason why I ran in 2000 is because the Green Party of Canada paid my fine from my Clayoquot Sound logging protest arrest and conviction. So I had a $1,500 fine to be paid by the end of 1994, or I would have spent 60 days in jail. So they had a fund where you could give to the Green Party and get a tax receipt, and they would put that money aside for the fines for the arrestees. The government put an end to that right away. They said that wasn't allowed anymore after that. But I felt I owed them something. They kind of stood up for me, so I thought I'd run. I ran also provincially in 1999. And this was just as a paper candidate. In 2004, we got a full slate. We got the whole 308 candidates, and I wanted to help them do that. But then about 2 years ago, I decided, I think I want to run. And here's my reason for running. We complain about the other parties, and certainly there's enough about the Green Party to complain about. We're not perfect, just like Sea Shepherd's not perfect. We have to own up to what we actually do, and how we do it, and how we can do it better. But really, no other of the big 3 parties really care about climate change. They're all kind of saying things. They're all kind of like making little moves in this direction. But all the whales I saved in Antarctica with the Sea Shepherds on those campaigns, if the oceans get acidified to a certain degree, they're all going to be dead. So none of that would have mattered. So we live in a system where the politicians and the corporations, but the politicians get elected by a first past the post system, and they get to make the policies and the laws that govern everything in our country. And if we don't have people in there, like Jordan, myself, and others, we're not going to really address these issues. And because the Green Party is so new, we can be a disrupting force. So a couple of reasons why we did so well, or I did so well in this campaign. We had almost 17 years of an NDP government that was plagued by scandal. At the end of their 17-year run, greenhouse gases were higher than ever. There's a problem with child and family services in Manitoba. There's 30,000 kids in care in Canada, and about a third of them are in Manitoba. They take kids into care, mostly Aboriginal people, and at the drop of a hat. It's such a horrible system. I'm surprised that they didn't lose on that alone. I thought that would be the #1 issue in the election. But elections are really strange things. I got help by a man named Andy Shadrach. He is actually he lives in Caslow, and he came out to volunteer on my campaign for almost 6 weeks. And he is a political science professor. He is won as a Green on the council level, on the municipal level, and he's actually going to try to get the nomination for, I don't know where Caslow is for the provincial riding, but in 2017, when the provincial election comes around here, he's going to try to get the nomination. He kept telling me, and of course he had to tell me over and over again because sometimes I don't get things very quickly, but he said elections are about trust. So my job going door to door, which was most of the work during the election campaign, was to simply listen to people. So that's what I did. I said, hi, I'm Dave, I'm with the Green Party, I'm running as the candidate, and if they wanted to talk, my job was to listen to them and gain their trust. And then that's really the bottom line of electoral politics. But I think, again, not as hard hitting a point, but the good news is that my background as an activist, and some would say a radical activist in terms of environment and animal rights, like the Sea Shepherds, they're not exactly the most mainstream group, although with whale wars and all that, they have become a little more mainstream. The good news is that we aren't as marginalized in the public eye as you might think. Again, it's not the most stellar point, but it's very important, because sometimes we like to think of ourselves as the terrible word phrase, but the underdog. Oh yes, everybody hates us. We have to work from the sidelines. We have to work from without. But do get involved with the political system. And like we had yesterday, go and report things. If you see something you don't like, tell the police and say, they're not following the law. This is important stuff. And I think from my experience being an activist since around 1990, a lot of people like to be in that sort of backed into that corner and thinking, oh, I'm just fighting and fighting against enormous odds. But you know what? I think you're much more accepted in our culture than you might think. So that's the basic point of running for office. Got a few other points here, just one second. Yeah, that's about all I wanted to say. It's a little bit shorter, but I also wanted to thank my wife Laura, because she did put up with a lot of my my stress, and we ran this campaign. There was a lot of people involved. I'd like to thank all my campaign workers as well. But I am going to run in 2020 again, and if I can bring something to the political realm that's a little more of a radical analysis in terms of animals and environment, I will. Well, thanks for listening.